Okay, well, hello, Tarla. Once again, we're getting together and having a little chat about, I guess, food and, its impact on our lives. Last time we spoke, we were speaking about, I was doing a lot of talking, actually, but it's about my relationship with food and how, I have the ups and downs, and then you were giving us some information about how food's really connected to moods and all of that. And we sort of left it at, how we could make how I could improve my relationship with food. So what could I improve about what I'm currently eating and how I can go about just eating better? So you got any suggestions for me?
Of course I do, Kathy. Really lovely to chat again. I thought maybe we could start with, maybe you can tell me about some of the foods that you like to eat, or that you have questions about.
Okay, well, one of the foods I used to eat a lot of was bread. I stopped eating it now because I have found that particularly the high, the stuff that stays on the shelf for a long time, like my belly just bloats and things like that. So I do tend to buy the, the sourdoughs and things like that. So I don't have as big a problem. But I do notice that, if I'm not watching what I eat around the bread type things, then, so that's one thing. And, look, it's an easy thing to do when you're on the run as well. So let's start with bread, I guess. We can move on to cake.
That's it's a great topic, because it's a lovely it's a lovely thing to open with, because it is quite a large part of some people's diets, and a lot of people probably aren't aware perhaps of those impacts that it's having on their body and perhaps their health and things like that. You've sort of mentioned experiencing feelings of bloating and things like that. I mean, a lot of people do seem to be more sensitive to gluten these days, and the reality is that the wheat we consume now is not the same as the wheat that, for example, our ancestors would have grown and consumed, and we also consume a lot more of it. It's a lot higher part of our diet. We don't have the same variety of grains that we used to have in our diets. But I guess modern manufacturing processes and the way that I guess we've genetically selected certain strains of wheat, they generally have a higher gluten content, and they're often produced in soils that don't have a lot of nutrient, that there's probably pesticides and things used in their production. And for example, glyphosate can be used as a desiccant before it's harvested, so it all the weeds at the same level of ripeness and things like that. So there's a lot of, I guess, issues with it in that regard. But in terms of, I suppose, minimising the impact of those on your health, if you do still like eating bread on occasion, I think you've made a really great choice if you've moved to things like sourdoughs, because they are, if they're made using, I guess, a traditional method, generally it'll be at least 3 days of fermenting that is involved in that. And again, you've got to be careful, because some companies can, I guess, mirror that, call it sourdough, but not have had it go through that same process.
Yeah, I must admit I've found that not all sourdoughs aren't equal.
No, that's right. So, where possible, if you can find out whether they've used a traditional method, how long has the dough been fermented for, and things like that, is sort of, I guess, good information to have if you can find it. And also you can get a lot of sourdoughs these days on things like spelt or other types of flours as well, if you do find you have a particular sensitivity to wheat and or gluten. Okay.
So I don't think I've seen those around, or maybe in the gluten-free sections I might have seen those, but I don't. So they've still got gluten.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say they still have gluten. Things like the spelt is just, I guess, in a form that generally some people seem to be able to tolerate better than sort of a whole wheat type product.
Okay. So I guess it is looking for those bakeries that take the extra. Would you go so far as organic? I mean, because part of this thing is making it easy. So I guess, I'm a traditional Woolworths shopper, because I can go there and get everything, and I just get annoyed with shopping. So I do go to their bakery section, but
So I don't know how Woolworths do sell sourdough of different kinds in that fresh bakery section. I don't know about their methods. But I have noticed in a lot of stores you can get the Soul Breads sourdoughs. And obviously this is sort of Australia specific, but if you go to the packaged bread section, that will have organic sourdough, some different organic sourdough products there.
And have you found
that's another option?
Good option?
I guess it's a reputable brand to me. It's been around a long time in terms of how they make it. I believe they do SOL breads. SOL. Yep, okay. SOL breads. Yeah.
Okay.
I normally go to, I guess, my local health food shop, and they will generally have, the fresh bread come in from different suppliers that generally are the organic sourdoughs. So that's probably my preference. And I put, if we're not going to eat it, sort of quickly stick it in the freezer so it doesn't sort of go off. Yeah,
I have discovered the freezer method, because now that the kids have left home, is that they don't actually plough through
it. Yeah. But no, that's right. And it's, I guess the reality is that if you buy bread that lasts for a long time, then it's going to have preservatives and additives in it. And, again, following on from what we've sort of said before, ideally you want to be looking for, products without preservatives and additives and flavors and things like this listed in the ingredients. So you should be able to see if they have got some of those other things in there. And I think you can go to some bakeries and get breads without the preservatives and things, and they won't last as long. But I think there are some bakeries you can ask for that, or as part of their products.
Okay. Well, we got onto this because I was, bread's something that I eat a lot, and we sort of spoke about wheat, but I guess wheat would come into flour and all that sort of stuff. So cake making, that's gravy making, that sort of thing. So is it wheat that's the problem, or is there other substitutes for wheat that would be better? To come back to being, I guess, trying to just do those simple changes that in everyday cooking that we would do.
Yeah. Well, I guess, first of all, wheat is not wheat. There's obviously different varieties. And as we've said, things like spelt, or there's some ancient grains now that are sort of becoming more popular, and probably need to go to health food stores for some of them, but are sort of some of the older varieties of wheat that people can often digest better. But I guess just in terms of if you just want to make a simple change, for example, using a wholemeal flour instead of a white flour, at least you've got some of the,
is that the husk?
I want to say some of the goodness still in there, yes.
So is it the in one of the things about wheat, is it that they've just refined it to the nth degree and then bleached it at the end? Is that really the biggest problem, and you really want to come back to it being more natural, like you said, the wholemeal?
I think that's one issue. The wheat germ is removed basically during refining processes to increase the shelf life. There's sort of these practical reasons manufacturers have gone down some of these paths. The bleaching, often people want to see a lovely white product rather than a,
pretty
discoloured brown product or something like that. But as soon as you start removing these parts, you no longer have that whole food. So, you're removing the fibre and nutrients. If you take the bran out, you're removing the, I guess, you're altering the product that it is. And I guess in a lot of cases, nature has packaged things up with everything you need to help you digest it. And when you take out some of those components, that's when some of these things can happen. But I really do think that, modern production methods mean a lot of, products are don't have their highest potential nutrient load that that they could if they were produced under different circumstances. And I guess that's why I always do try to buy organic products, and that's still not a perfect solution necessarily for all people, and it's still I guess trusting different certifications and things that is produced in a way that's better for hopefully the environment as well as the health of the consumer.
Yeah, I think the thing for me with organic products is, well, is this a good certification, or like you said, the certification? Because some of them, the ones that are made in Australia, just means they have to be packaged in Australia, and it's like, well, anyway, that's going on to another topic, but
that's a different topic. Labeling, different topic. I know it can be difficult sometimes, but I do feel, I guess, I don't know, for myself, I don't have the, I guess, resources and energy to pursue all of these things. I guess trust that Australia generally has reasonable laws around things like this, and I hope I'm not going to be shown to be wrong about that. I think some imported products, maybe, I can't speak for their certification processes, but I think there are some internationally recognised things, and I guess it's a question of discretion, and hopefully most of the time you are getting that organic product.
Well,
and they're a lot more readily available.
Right, I keep sidetracking you, and so like, what other simple changes? And I don't know whether we finished the bread/wheat thing, but how to, in the everyday cooking and food preparation that we do in our homes, like what simple thing? I mean, apart from not buying pre-packaged meals, which is probably the biggest obvious thing to not do, like what's the next step? If you're sort of thinking that you're doing the right thing by cooking something, what's some options?
Well, I guess just again looking at things you do every day. Do you use butter or margarine? Which choice do you make there? And I don't know what that answer is for you, but if you philosophically approach it as being, well, which one's closer to a real food, what would you say, is the answer there?
Oh, okay. So the butter margarine thing. I mean, personally, I have been eating butter because I just feel that even the cheap butter tastes nicer than margarine. But but using that example, it's like that's the butter is actually closest to the cow.
Yep. And I absolutely agree. Yeah, I think that's that's something the whole I don't know why margarine's still allowed to be sold in stores based on, I guess,
margarine's made of. I think it's
that's it is a highly manufactured product, and if you look into the history of it, it's not pretty, and so I recommend having a look at that if anyone's interested. But basically, it is not a healthful product, and it is full of, I guess, highly processed fats and oils.
While we're on margarine, thoughts on the olive oil margarines, where I did them for a while because I thought, well, it's just solid, it's just solid olive oil. Yeah, but is it? I don't think it is really. There's too many numbers at the end of it.
Well, I don't know. I guess I haven't looked at the ingredient list on that, but I guess my instinctive response would be, is olive oil solid in nature?
Correct. Okay. Yeah.
And if it's not, something's been done to it to make it solid. I'd be cautious, I guess, or perhaps would research further before eating too much of it.
Okay, so we've done bread and butter, which is
well, I don't want to turn everyone off sandwiches forever, but
so what else should people be aware of?
Well, I feel like I keep saying this, and hopefully it's it's an easy philosophy. The thing is something resembling a real food when I go to eat it. So, for example, if you go to buy jam, is fruit the top ingredient or not? Or is sugar the top ingredient when you're looking at the label? Does it have colours and flavours added, or is it basically just fruit and sugar, and a bit of pectin to set it? So these are ways you can sort of start to, I think, easily, if you're looking at 3 different products on the shelf, to, I guess, decide between them if you have if you've got no other criteria that you're sort of looking at apart from what do I think's, the least processed, contains, ingredients I can understand, is another good one to sort of look at. Do I know what, these things are that it's got listed on the ingredients label? And that's sort of one way to sort of start, a simple way, rather than going, well, look for these particular things, or a lot of, some people get quite caught up in things like, the nutritional labels, where it's sort of like, this protein content, this fat content, this much, this much this much that. And I guess, I do admire Cindy O'Meara on, from Changing Habits, on Sunshine Coast, because to me she brings it down quite simply to, you know, is it real food? Is it, you know, something that your body will recognise? And that's something that I think is a nice, easy sort of thing to think of, rather than getting overwhelmed with, you know, she believes, you know, you should be looking at the ingredients list first before you look at the nutritional sort of breakdown, because just because something might look good on paper doesn't mean it's actually a real food in terms of the ingredients. You know, that's the reality. I mean, there's plenty of foods, like you sort of, you know, we've talked about wheat. There's a lot of popularity around gluten-free products now. But I guess, you know, I'd say just look at the labels and see whether, you know, a lot of them are highly processed. And so for me, I'm sort of like, well, I don't know that is a better choice for a lot of people. You know, because you're eating highly refined and processed food, as opposed to perhaps something that's more closely representing our natural product. But
I must admit, one of the things that I do wherever I can is if I'm at markets, some people have made jams or chutneys. I tend to buy them, because it's probably some little mum and dad who's put real ingredients together and sold it, and it might taste nice. And I mean, the problem with that is if you find a really yummy one, you generally don't find it then. But for me, it supports like the local people as well as like having something a bit there. Now, we've talked about potentially substituting different flours and things like that. Like one of the my staple foods, certainly while I've had kids and was getting them through everything, was basically meat and veg, two veg sort of thing dinners. And you know, I certainly adore potato, particularly with butter and cream in it and all that sort of stuff, which you shouldn't have on it. So I'm thinking, you know, on your standard meals, is there things that would substitute? So I know that potato, you know, the good thing to have instead is sweet potatoes, but, you know, is there a better sweet potato? Is there different alternatives to give that? Because like my little brain's stuck on that starch thing that, you know, I've got to have meat, a vegetable and a starch thing, sort of thing like that. So that's a standard thing, but you can perhaps talk about other standard meals that might have better substitutes.
Well, I think that, in my mind, there's no right and wrong answer about some of these things. I think having a variety in your diet is a good, you know, way to look at it and go, well, okay, I had potato last night, maybe I'll have sweet potato tonight, rather than going, I have to have this instead of that all the time. I think that's perhaps not, you know, not the way to approach it in a lot of cases.
Okay, I could,
and maybe, you know, maybe have something different. The next night, or, you know, sort of, so, you know, I guess thinking along those lines, going, okay, well, you know, maybe I can substitute tonight and I'll have my potato again tomorrow night, or I'll do it, you know, perhaps I'll make it a different way, or something, to give yourself that feeling of variety, or, you know, things like that. I mean, I have to admit, we eat a lot of like roast vegetables, and I mean, I love it, but I feel like it sort of becomes a fallback, you know, in some cases, because I can throw it in the oven and meanwhile, you know, get Abby through the bath and kind of do all the other things that are happening in the background. I don't have to watch it.
Look, I confess oven cooking is a brilliant thing, because it's like stick it in and you put something in here, and then half an hour later you put the next thing in, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and then you pull it out and you eat it, sort of thing like that. So that's my equivalent of the takeaway meal. Or the pre-packaged meal, which is like really easy.
That's right, and that's really great. And I think, you know, it sounds like you're preparing it from those raw ingredients, and that's wonderful. Something I did read recently, and I honestly can't remember where I saw it, did say that their criticism of a meat and three veggie philosophy is that you do miss out on some food groups, for example, your beans and your legumes, and perhaps other healthy fats and things like this. So, I mean, I feel like you're probably just talking about your main meal of the day in terms of having that as a traditional sort of way of eating. But I thought, well, that's an interesting way to think about it, again, just in terms of that variety of food in the diet. Is it precluding getting other things? You know, say, for example, can you make a dal every now and then with your lentils and, you know, and your veggies and your coconut milk, and, you know, there's just other foods, and you know, people can easily get a bit of extra nutrient, say, for example, if you sprinkle some nuts and seeds on your, you know, on your veggies before you eat them, or, it's a lot of sort of little hacks that this is actually some of this stuff's coming from a feeding fussy toddler book that I've been looking at, where in this particular instance, they're sort of like, if your child's a fussy eater, every mouthful counts. So the more you can make it a high nutrient mouthful, if that's all they're going to eat, then that's a good thing. So they actually have sort of a one of the things they recommend is, I think they call it a memock. Basically, you're grinding up sunflowers, pepitas, sesame seeds, I think linseed, maybe a few almonds, I think, together. And the idea being, you can I put a teaspoon on Abby's porridge. You mix it in, you can't taste it, but it's adding that extra nutrient to that, to that meal. I put on my porridge and stuff as well. It's just a way to sort of add a bit of extra boost.
I do confess is mince and spaghetti or mince dishes hide a lot of vegetables that kids
they do, absolutely. Yeah. No, I absolutely give Abby that quite a bit, sort of vegetable-based pasta sauce with some, with different meats could be mixed in.
It's like,
and that's the other thing about it. Sorry. I was going to say about the meat and 3 veggies, as long as you're getting variety of meat as well, I guess your chicken, your meat, your fish, and having those vegetarian meals as well, ideally, just to.
Yeah. It's it's definitely food for thought to think about. Or food for thought. That wasn't a pun, actually.
Well done.
it's just food for thought, thinking of the how I eat and how I guess the people listening to this eat, and then just having that thought. And one of the things, and I've said this a few times when we've spoken to you, is what's if you want to change, if you want to have a healthy temple, there's a reason people are listening to this, to change what they're eating and why they're doing it. And so they really need to sit back and think, and this is for myself even, is the first thing I've been doing and what I'm observing is why I'm eating. Am I hungry? No, most of the time I eat, I'm not hungry. And then most of it, and then what I've noticed for me is I'm eating and then I'll overeat because I like the taste and the texture of whatever it is I'm eating. And so I guess some of the and I haven't eaten a Kentucky Fried in a while, and I hated it for ages. But I went through a stage with the kids where I bought Kentucky, but you got the crunch. You had the crunch, and then the chicken thing, and then the juice popping out of the chicken. So thinking about it, it's going to be that. Not the fat. Don't think of the fat. But it's just I'm actually looking at it going, oh my God, I'm eating and I'm continued. If the food is still available to me, I will keep eating because I like that taste and texture in my mouth. And so I've got to pack it away. So as in, like, just halve it and go, that's for lunch and this is for dinner, sort of thing like that. So I guess that's a quick substitute for anybody in my situation whose biggest problem is probably overeating or continuing to eat past being full. Is the substitution of a small plate, dish out your dinner on a small plate. I mean, that's one thing. I think for me, some of those foods, the appeal has gone just because of what I know about them. So I guess educating yourself about, well, I guess in terms of how that chicken is produced in a lot of these cases. I knew all of that and ignored it at the time.
Not a great. Well, I mean, we're hardwired. I think that the magic, magic thing in our brain is that mixture of fat and sugar, which is like cheesecake and things like this, are so moreish, I guess, to most people. We just can't seem to stop. And some of those foods, like, biologically, we probably do find it really, enjoyable and sort of satiating to eat and things like that. But like I said, for me, the knowing the trans fats are, pretty much carcinogenic and things like this, no longer allowed to be, used in fast food industry and things, sort of, I don't know. Like I said, for me, it's for me, the appeal's gone in that regard. But I guess I haven't tried it for a while, but now I don't know that I could actually, would actually want to eat it. So
I can't go near it. I can't even. There's a shop around the corner. Every time I come past it, I sort of hide my thing now. And that's how, when I made the decision, this is stupid. I shouldn't keep doing this. And it just happened. It just clicked in my brain. So it was definitely a mental thing, but it was just interesting, like in the last couple of months where I've been, we've started this conversation with you, and I've started thinking about, well, why am I eating? What's driving me to eat? And just observing. It's not a judgmental. I'm not judging.
That's right.
I'm doing this, that, or the other. It's simply observing to go, okay. So, it is the texture of the food. It is the taste of the food and that sort of stuff. And it's enjoyable, and maybe it's kicking off. And, last time we spoke about moods, and that's probably why then I was getting a high, because I'm eating this stuff that I'm actually, it is actually comfort food. So is there anything that people should be aware of in their day-to-day eating that is probably either a quick change out or?
Well, we've spoken about some things already, even just say using butter instead of margarine, or trying to get, I guess, a better quality bread if that's part of your normal diet. You can get lots of different organic, tinned organic foods now that is an easy substitute if you normally use chickpeas in something. That it's just quite, well, in Australia it's quite easy to get sort of a canned organic, different beans and things, chickpeas and things like that, and different vegetables. And now you can start getting some frozen, like you can get frozen organic peas, frozen organic corn and things like that in Woolworths in a lot of cases. So that's that's to me a super easy change if if your budget can tolerate it. And I don't think those things are necessarily a lot more expensive. I think they're still reasonably affordable. Probably
the frozen and the canned stuff would be
Yep. I guess again where you have the option and the means and the availability to substituting things like, say, organic dairy for your normal dairy and things like that. Ideally, just pasteurized milk rather than the homogenized and pasteurized, sort of trying to get it as close as possible to that product. Some people really advocate for raw milk. It's not always going to be wanting to choose that, and for some people it might not be the best choice for their health. But things like even the types of sugar that you use, I generally use Rapadura sugar, which is just a dehydrated cane sugar, rather than a refined sugar, which is start to refine anything you're stripping. Things like the nutrient, things like that. So
what was that sugar again?
Salt, I generally use the seaweed salt or Himalayan salt.
What was the sugar?
Oh, sorry, Rapadura. It's just a dehydrated. A Rapadura sugar. So that's available in Woolworths. I tend to get it in bulk at the health food shop. That's where I get a lot of those sort of, I guess, bulk flours and nuts and seeds and legumes and things like that. So you can sort of get it then without the plastic packaging and things like that. Things like the salt, try and get an unrefined salt. I mean, it's actually a bit of a minefield, because even sea salt these days can have impurities in it just for the pollution now, in our oceans and things like that. So it's very, like, in a lot of cases there's possibly not a perfect, there's probably sort of a perfect answer that is available to us readily. But things with like the salt, I mean, a lot of people think they need to get iodine from their iodized salt, but generally that's a highly refined salt. So I guess I grind up seaweed flakes and just mix it in with my salt. So every time I use salt in cooking and things, you're getting that little bit of iodine.
So what do you grind up with this salt?
Seaweed flakes. Things like that, flakes. Just to get that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So it doesn't change the flavour. You don't, you might see little green flecks in your food. It doesn't bother me, but it's it's a way to just, I guess, you're therefore still getting the iodine. You don't have to have that refined salt product. That's sort of, I guess, another conversation about some of those trace elements that we don't have readily available in our modern diets. But I'm very happy to say that Abby likes those nori sheets, the seaweed sheets.
I was going to say, where do you get the seaweed flakes from? Is it the sheets? Do I just go buy the sheets?
I normally just get seaweed flakes from the health food shop, but you can get the nori sheets at the supermarket. Honestly, I don't know. I have heard that it's good to get a variety, as with anything. You can get different types of seaweed flakes, and ideally get one time and then a different one another time. And that's another thing you can just sprinkle on salads and things like that if you do want that bit of extra, I guess, nutrient sort of boost. But yes, we've sort of talked about some of the wheat substitutes. We didn't really go into some of those other gluten-free options. There are flours like your tapioca and arrowroot, buckwheat flours. Get the coconut flour. There's pretty much quinoa flour. There's nearly any type of flour if you look for it these days. But they have different flavours, and that's something that I found, that some people don't like the flavour of some of these alternatives. And if I make a gluten-free cake or something, generally I'll use a blend. So it might be like 3 or 4 of those different flours blended together. And there's sort of different websites you can Google to sort of get an idea of ratios and things like that, depending whether you want a heavier baked product or a lighter product.
Right. So. Okay. Yeah.
Or possible, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's sort of just another level. Yeah.
I mean, like bread is easily available through bakeries, so you can generally get your organic bread. So people wouldn't be. Well, you can make bread at home, obviously, but it tends to be. It's just an easy thing to buy. Whereas the substitute or the different flours would come in more for cake cooking, pastries, I guess. Most of your dinners wouldn't be because you're cooking it with flour, that's for sure. Well, I guess if you're making homemade pasta, you might do it that way, but
no, I have never made pasta. I have to admit that it's not been something that I've ever done. I'd love to one day.
Well, I'm avoiding pasta because it does the same thing for me as eating the white white bread now. So I really just have sort of avoided that. Right. Okay. So we've gone through. You've given us a couple of simple changes and what people can be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what I'll just ask you for is, looking at the pantry, and I'm just going to start you off from some of the things you've said. There's a couple of things we can add to our pantry straight away, which will just be really good, which would be seaweed flakes to add into your salt. Nuts, mixture of nuts and things like that you could just sprinkle over the top of any foods that you're eating. So is there any other sort of quick things that people could start adding to their pantry? I know you've got a pretty good base on good organic stuff in your thing, but somebody like me, what's a couple of things that we could start adding and including in our diet or food that we eat?
Well, I think definitely things like nuts and seeds, really great, but you probably want to keep them, for example, in the refrigerator, because they go rancid if they're out of refrigerator or freezer.
Oh, okay.
This is sort of this next level of you don't really want to grind up nuts and stick them back in your cupboard. You actually need to keep them refrigerated or in the freezer just to stop the oils from going off.
Okay.
And that's again, Cindy O'Meara would say that it's a case of you should actually only use raw nuts in their shell and crack them and eat them, or otherwise, they're starting to go basically. You don't know how long something's been in the processing or in the, on the ship or wherever it's come from before it's got to your table. But, that's sort of again, another level I haven't gone to in terms of it's also meant to help them stop
overeating. You can go down too many rabbit holes and then not eat anything.
I know, So but I think definitely, as I said, that sort of variety, you can easily substitute, your sugars for the unrefined sugar as opposed to, the other sugar. If you want to substitute spelt for the flour that you normally do use, ideally unbleached or wholemeal, flours instead of the white flours. Sort of spoken about just looking at the labels and just sort of, thinking to yourself, is there anything in there that I don't understand? Do I recognise this as food? Are sort of really helpful things. A lot of people, we haven't probably got time to go into right now, but breakfast is sort of, a lot of people want a quick meal, but a lot of breakfast cereals are not probably your ideal, fuel for your body and mind and things like that. So I guess I think you had a really good comment about just observing what you're doing, and that's a really good way to start. Just going, oh look, I eat this because it's convenient or it's readily available or I don't know any differently, or, and sort of start thinking about why you're making certain choices. And from that point, I guess asking yourself, well, I wonder what I can do differently. And there's so much information now, and there's a lot of different, if you find a couple of good websites with people's, with recipes that you like, I find that whenever I'm feeling sort of lacking that inspiration or feeling like we're starting to just repeat the same things over and over, there's a couple of different websites that I like looking at and going, oh, okay, that looks good. I'm going to try that tomorrow. I'm going to, try that
I've
next
never
week
been
a shopping or whatever.
Yeah, I've never been a recipe follower or anything, because I used to just cook, and I don't know how. I mean, Mum had recipes and that, and but I have started taking a hint from you, Tarla, and I've been googling some recipes lately, and there's probably but not just going, okay, I've got this in my cupboard, what can I make with it? So
and that's that's a fun way to do it too, and that's probably I'm a bit more like that, go, oh yeah, what's in the fridge or whatever, and what, I don't know, what patterns can I see in there that would come together in a meal. We haven't really touched on things like the types of oils that are used. That's quite an important thing. There's quite a big difference in, I guess, the healthful properties. Ideally you want to be having your cold pressed oils, the cold pressed olive oils, or say macadamic oils, avocado oils and things like that. Vegetables are highly refined. So there's sort of something to avoid.
I remember finding I found a book once, or I was speaking to somebody once, that there was this whole recipe book about oils and what you could cook with the different oils and what the different oils were all about. And I just looked at it and I thought, that's so fascinating. And like, I can't afford to have all of these different oils sitting in my cupboard, and then they go off as well if you don't use them. And so quickly, what's a good 2 oils to have in your pantry?
Oh, my go-tos are coconut oil and olive oil. I guess they're probably the 2 oils. I use butter quite a lot in cooking as well. In terms of, I guess I get the organic grass-fed butter generally where I can. And they're definitely sort of go-tos. I think olive oils, you don't want to heat them. You don't really high temperatures because they will change. If you want to really great to have on your salads. And I generally use coconut oil for the sort of higher temperatures, and honestly it's an area I'd like to look into more in terms of what are those thresholds, I guess, under which or over which you shouldn't use certain things. So I think I'd have to check, but I think things like avocado oil are actually quite good at the high, macadamia oil perhaps at the high temperatures, but they're more expensive, and I acknowledge that. You can get most of them in the supermarket now, but they do cost more, and that's just a choice people have to make. Like I said, most of my oil is generally is the olive oil and coconut oil.
Well, unless you're cooking, like if you were cooking in a commercial kitchen or something like that, you'd go through, you'd want to have the different oils for different reasons and different flavors and things like that. But when you're just doing a cooking, it's like, unless you put something side by side, I probably wouldn't notice the difference.
Well, in some cases I find some olive oils I don't like the flavor of. I find it a bit strong, but if that's ever an issue, I find macadamia oil is actually really nice, neutral, sort of generally fairly neutral flavor. So I think if it's something that someone wants to look into further, there's sort of a lot of information, sort of other subtleties you can bring into it.
But a good pantry go-to is the coconut and the olive oil. So
they're
the good quality ones.
Definitely. That's right. So generally the cold pressed or the extra virgin, olive oils and things like that. So I know there's definitely coconut oils which don't solidify, and again I haven't looked into that a whole lot, but to me it's like, well, it's been changed from its natural form because it's below about 25 degrees normally it's solid. It's something's been done to that that means it's not, or some have been deodorized, or things like this. So to me that's just I guess it's a red flag without saying I know exactly what it's what it's doing to us.
And I guess on the coconut oil thing, I use it on my skin as well, because one of the things that we do forget is that the skin is the largest organ in the body, and we put chemicals on it. You know, it's like
absolutely.
If you're not going to eat the chemicals, why are you putting it on your body?
Yeah, no, that's a whole nother,
whole nother topic,
whole nother discussion.
Well, listen, Tarla, as always, it's lovely speaking with you. I hope we've gotten through. Well, I've certainly got a few pantry things, and I've gone tick, 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 but that's on my pantry, but that's probably because you've been training me. I haven't got the seaweed flakes there, so we'll do that.
Okay, there's something.
But as always, it's great speaking with you. Any final hints and tips about substitutions, about quick, simple changes, or have I exhausted you?
No. I think just keep reading the labels and just keep sort of observing what you're doing, and it's keep an open mind. And if you sort of stuck for any ideas, then the internet's a really great resource generally for, what can I use instead of something, or honestly, that's a tip just for cooking anyway. Sometimes I don't have something, I need something else. But we live in an age where there's, probably over information available in some cases, but just observe and I guess be curious about what is in this thing that I'm eating, or I wonder what would give me that satisfaction eating it that I'm currently getting from something that might not be the best thing for my health. Or it's a journey. It's definitely a journey, and I'm still on it, and we're all on it.
Well, and I would also recommend that the final and best substitute is get Tarla to cook for you instead. So, I don't know what your substitute is, Tarla, but it's definitely you cook lovely, tasty things and interesting things, and I certainly enjoy it when I'm over there at your place eating. But for everybody else, like and subscribe. Look down below for any extra details that we'll put in there. As we dig them up, we'll pop them in there. So see you next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.